Okay, well, let's sort of dive into the Heart Sutra a bit. As I said, the Heart Sutra is kind of one of those interesting documents, really. It's a condensed form of a very, very sort of large collection of wisdom sutras in the Buddhist canon, and it's sort of condensed down into this basically one-page sutra that's chanted certainly in Zen temples and monasteries every day, all around the world, usually several times a day, all around the world. And it's thought to be sort of one of the most condensed forms of, you might even say, sort of the Buddhist non-dual teaching, certainly the Zen version of the non-dual teaching. And as I said, the Heart Sutra is both beautiful philosophically. It can be read sort of in a philosophical or theological sort of way, and it has a sort of beauty and elegance to it when we do that. My approach to wanting to talk about the Heart Sutra with you is not so much philosophical, although I'll touch upon some of those elements. But I also want to sort of bring it back down into the practicalities of our everyday lives and how it really connects to spiritual clarity, awakening, wisdom. So why don't we just sort of dive in? And the big subject of the Heart Sutra is, of course, emptiness. And emptiness as a subject, at least to the Western ear, isn't the most fascinating subject, because we don't in the West have a positive connection with emptiness usually. You know, we think of emptiness as sort of something missing, an empty box or an empty space or something like that, you know, which doesn't give the most positive sort of connotation. So maybe the first place to start is that in the sense that the Heart Sutra is using the word emptiness, or the Buddhist teachings use the word emptiness. It's funny, that word emptiness has been the concept that has sort of created so much interest in the Buddhist teaching. Probably because it's an odd concept to sort of have as the base, the fundamental, the essential element of a spiritual teaching, you know, and because the way that that's been unpackaged over the centuries by any number of different realizers, as well as the Buddha himself. So that's kind of interesting, but it's also interesting that this is called the Heart Sutra, because if you were just to give this document to the average person and say, here, this is a profound spiritual wisdom teaching, it's called the Heart Sutra, and if most people read through this, one of the things they might think was, well, where's the heart? And why do they call this the Heart Sutra? And again, it's kind of goes back to, at least in part, you know, the Heart Sutra has so many subtleties to it and different sort of philosophical avenues you can go down. I'm not going to go down all those today. But in the East, the heart in this context is sort of synonymous with wholeness or inseparability, right? Which is really the theme of the Heart Sutra. The theme of the Heart Sutra is non-separation or inseparability, the inseparability of things, right? Including you and me and us to the world, the inseparability of oneself to whatever your conception of the divine is, whether it's God or it's Buddha nature or it's spirit or whatever that might want to be. But it's, so in one sense, well, not in one sense, but in a very real sense, the Heart Sutra is all about inseparability and also the lack of a sort of abiding center. So let's just sort of jump into that for the moment. As I said, if we go through this, probably the most famous line of the Heart Sutra is Avalokiteshvara, which is one of the Buddha's disciples, and Avalokiteshvara is noted as the Bodhisattva of compassion. So Avalokiteshvara is doing deep prajnaparamita, practicing deep wisdom, right? Clearly saw. So this is like a realization experience. Clearly saw the emptiness of all the five conditions. Form is no other than emptiness. Emptiness, no other than form. That's the most famous line in the Heart Sutra. Emptiness is no other than form. Form is no other than emptiness. Emptiness, no other than form. So let's just dive in here with another version of what emptiness means. As I said, emptiness in terms of the whole of the Heart Sutra is its aim, what it's trying to get us to realize, because this is really the aim of the Heart Sutra, is trying to get us to realize something, right? Not just believe it or study it philosophically or those kind of considerations. The ultimate consideration of the Heart Sutra is so we join, in a certain sense, Shariputra, clearly seeing the emptiness of all the five conditions, the emptiness of existence, the emptiness of self, which in a positive way of looking at it is the inseparability of things, right? Whether it's the inseparability of you to someone, to something else, to you, the world around you, to you and the divine, however you conceptualize that, but it's inseparability. And the other kind of meaning of emptiness is that nothing exists separately. The emptiness of a separately existing anything. That everything goes together. You know, it's kind of like, say your hand, for instance. You know, there is no such thing as a separately existing hand. Hands just don't mysteriously float around in the world all by themselves. They're connected to arms and elbows and shoulders and bodies. And, you know, so the hand is inseparable with the entire body. Even though we use the word hand or nose or eyes or ears as if they exist apart from, as if your ear existed apart from your head, or your head existed apart from your body, or your eyes existed apart from, you know, any other part of you. Conceptually, when we talk about them, we do this all the time, every single day. We talk about, just in the manner of the way our language is put together and constructed, we'll talk about things as if they are totally separate from each other. We kind of need to do that to be able to communicate clearly. But in that conceptual way of expressing ourselves, we can lose connection. Literally a kind of visceral, kinesthetic connection with the inseparability of things, with another word for inseparability or unity. To me, the word I like the most is a profound intimacy with existence, right? Because inseparability is, you know, it's a nice concept. Unity is a really pleasant sounding idea. But when we get down to like, what does that actually mean in terms of experience, right? Because the Heart Sutra is trying to get us to experience something, to realize something, to realize prajnaparamita, to realize transcendental wisdom, right? That's what it's trying to do. It's not necessarily trying to convince us of anything. It's almost like a prompt to spiritual practice. And this is the way it's used. As I say, this is chanted several times a day, usually morning, afternoon, evening, before, after meditation, and sometimes before meditation. And it's it's like a prompt. It's something that you would chant, and that it would just sort of be there in the background of your consciousness when you go into meditation or you come out of meditation or whatever spiritual practice you're doing, to kind of elicit a kind of deeper sort of insight. So let's take this personally, because this is where it gets real, right? Because we can talk about inseparability and unity and all these big sounding concepts as if they're out here, as if they're just ideas floating in space or something. But the relevance of this only hits us when we start to apply this to our most intimate, our closest sense of ourselves, right? And